Hi everyone, my name's Catherine Slater and you're joining me today for the Children and Young People Services webinar. I'm an engagement advisor for East Midlands and Yorkshire on behalf of Activity Alliance. I just want to tell you a little bit more about me. My career started in 2002 working for a local charity in North Derbyshire called Fair Play. We provided lots of different support to disabled children and their families. And since then, I have a passion for activity and ensuring disabled children can take part and have opportunities within that. So therefore, I've actually worked for the County Sports Partnership in Derbyshire, and I've either done that, worked directly with sport, or I have worked in family services supporting disabled children and their families intermittently in between different jobs. So today I'm going to be taking you through a webinar pulling on all that knowledge and experience around disabled children and young people to help you understand the landscape and the opportunities. This is one of a number of webinars that Activity Alliance have developed to give you insight, knowledge and tools and examples to help you within your work. And I have a colleague here supporting me today to help deliver this webinar. Just going to introduce you to Helen.
Hi, my name's Helen Darby and I also work for Activity Alliance on the Get Out, Get Active project. And previously in other roles, I worked within children and young people services within the education sector and was actual lead inclusion school within Nottinghamshire. So have some experience through that I can pull on throughout the webinar.
Lovely, let's get started. Just want to kind of frame the outcomes of today's workshop. We want to give you an understanding of disabled children and young people's landscape at really a national and local level. Give you some practical examples where impact of working with non-traditional partners have had and can have. And we also want to increase your confidence. So why is it important to understand children and young people's services? Really, we need to understand all of our audiences much better. I think sometimes we want to be something to everybody, and we need to try and really focus down what our audience is. And to work with children and young people services, we need to really understand how children and young people work within the systems of education, but also through statutory services. So we want to help you understand that. Because it's an opportunity to consult and identify needs. It will increase your knowledge on the importance of opportunities sport and physical activity can bring to their children, young people and families. It's specific targeted marketing as well as programs and projects. So hopefully we'll cover and give that understanding to allow you to get better engagement. So the national picture. There's lots of stats on here, but the main ones to pull out is that there's roughly about 1.25 million disabled children in England. And the figures show roughly 2.8% of pupils in England, which is around 240,000 children, have statements of special educational needs or an education, health and care plan. To find out your local stats, I would consider contacting your local education authority or disabled children's team if you've got them. And you'll also potentially have sensory services within the local authority. So you might be able to use some of these national stats, but if you want real insight into how many disabled children in the impairment specific groups, I would consider contacting your local authority to start to build that picture of what numbers look like within your locality. So what I want to do today is pull out some key services that I think will be useful for you to engage. This is complementary to the written resource around children and young people services. So we're just going to go into a little bit more depth about each one of these areas. So education, health and care plans have replaced statements of special educational needs. And again, the main points to pull out on this is that now what's happened is the big differences are statements of educational needs are from school age, only up to the age of 18. However, now EHCPs are from birth to 25 years old. There are now more personal budgets attached to some of the individual plans, but not in all areas. They can still be limited. One of the areas potentially that's become more of an option is, again, around transport and travel. And the other big area is parental participation. We're going to work through a couple of the significant areas of education, health and social care plans where I feel sport and physical activity providers have an area to influence with greatest impact. So parent carer forums, each local authority has to have one, and they are an independent voice for parents and carers to assist around developments and changes to do with their children and young people within education, health and social care. And the second part is the local offer, which is an online resource predominantly, whereby all services, whether that be leisure-based, health, social care or education, are all in one place for parents and carers, supporters and young people to actually access themselves. You can find your local parent carer forum or your local offer by literally typing in those words and typing your locality area. There is a national network of parent carer forums, if that makes it easier. So if you put the national network of parent carer forums, that will link you into your local independent parent carer forum. The local offer, you will have to put your locality in, and they are called slightly different things, but generally, if it's an online resource with all of that information on it, that will be the local offer. So parent carer forums. Research tells us that we need to engage with parent carers about the benefits of being active, and we want families also to be active together, because we know through research that makes it easier for them to want to participate in activities. So to be able to do that, really, we need to engage with them, and therefore working with parent carer forums as a starting point to actually start working and understanding some of the parent carer challenges or issues, or how to engage them and educate them around why being active is beneficial for them as a family. We need to kind of have a platform to do that, and we do have one. The parent carer forums are willing to work with lots of different organisations. You just need to get the right contacts for actually going and meeting with them. One area that's been particularly good around doing this was Active Lincolnshire. What they've done is they surveyed disabled children and young people, which was actually carried out by the local SEND team to identify views between children and parents around being active. And as you can appreciate, there was actually a difference in opinions by parents and children, particularly from parents who had worries of negative perceptions, and they also worried about whether their child would fit in and whether it would meet their ability level. Therefore, it's clear that they need to do a little bit more work and unpick some of those issues. So Active Lincolnshire was brought on board for the expertise around sport and physical activity. The SEND team had the links into the parent carer network, and so then they did further consultation work to really unpick some of those issues. And what that actually meant was they got to the root of some of the issues, and the Every Child Matters funding that was available back then funded an improvement plan. And so with the expertise of Active Lincolnshire, they could bring in the sports providers to deliver a number of different opportunities. So they started to develop some multi-sports days, which they could branded activities for all. They also started working with some sports specific as well as multi-sport specific clubs to ensure that the workforce were more welcoming to disabled children, young people and their families. And this also led on to involving parent carers as advocates, because they'd experienced positive family activities, and of course those parents went off and talked to other parents about it. So there's real potential to work with parent carer forums. The second stage is the local offer. And again, like I've said before, the purpose is to enable parents, carers and young people themselves to have an easy system to access information all in one place. There's a real opportunity for physical activities and sports providers to enter events and volunteering opportunities to feature on that local offer. So it's imperative that people do get those activities on there, because you are actually directly marketing to the individuals themselves. And to complement the local offer, in some areas, some local authorities, they actually provide a magazine. And what happens is this magazine features lots of different articles that, again, directly market to that target audience, but raise the profile of it. But you can also follow somebody's journey. And the nice thing about magazines, you can feature real people in it. You can tell the stories. And so people can really resonate with some of the articles in there. So please check whether your local authority has a magazine, because they would welcome articles from physical activity and sports providers about success stories, about journeys of people, blogs, things like that, to really entice and give their magazine more content as well that's meaningful to the local area. A great example of how this has been done in a joined up approach is through Northamptonshire Sport. They were actually asked to write the sport physical activity section of the local offer, in which there was over 100 different activity and providers listed. They also provided articles for the local offer, which their magazine, which was called SNCS, and that was distributed to over 4,500 parents and carers, and that continues to grow with the longer it's there. And again, they've used that as a way of highlighting the importance of physical activity, the reasons to be active. They've also used it as a way to consult with parents and carers, and they've also used it as a way to promote new opportunities. They have social media pages which complement that local offer. So again, they've used that as a way to directly market activities. And they've also used it as a way to work with other organisations and promote activities. And again, pulling people together in a collaborative way has maximised their reach and also some of the resource that they have. So the impact of that has been amazing, really, and it continues to grow over in Northamptonshire. They've developed inclusive multi-sports club, pan-disability football teams, wheelchair rugby teams. They've recruited swimmers through talent ID programmes. They've created new partnerships with the Northants Disability Parent Forum, and that again has led to more opportunities based on the consultation and insight that they have with that group. So they've had over 700 young people and their families access 12 physical activity opportunities through their Summer Sensation programme. So again, I can't stress enough how important it is to really link with the parent carer forums if you haven't already, and the local offer. I'm going to hand you over to Helen, who's going to talk a little bit more about the Lead Inclusion Schools and the benefits to working within Lead Inclusion Schools, both in education and out into the community.
Hiya, like Catherine said, I'm just going to go over this area with you and give you another area that you guys can tap into. So, like I said before, within my previous role, I was actually a Lead Inclusion School within Nottinghamshire, so have quite a lot of experience working for this network. So there's three kind of core areas that this network looks at. There's it's made up of about 60 expert schools kind of across England. Within your larger regions, they have up to a couple of Lead Inclusion Schools, and your smaller ones will just have one based within the county. So I can't emphasise enough like how important it is to actually link with these Lead Inclusion Schools, because they're an excellent kind of resource to kind of tap into and support engaging children and young people. So it's an initiative that's come through Youth Sports Trust, so they kind of lead on it and work with a network of schools to help support children and young people. So there's three areas around the Lead Inclusion School. So the first one's around workforce development. So they have an offer to kind of support and empower teachers and support staff to be more inclusive within schools. So this is looking at PE and obviously making sure disabled children access high quality PE and also access sports opportunities outside of school as well. So key area that they look at is CPD and kind of engaging teachers and support staff, linking very much with a programme that we run, which is the Inclusive PE programme. Again, you can Google things like this and it will just come up and show you where these workshops are happening over the country. The second area is around creating opportunities for children and young people, disabled children and young people. A big area of this was around kind of competition and the pathways into competition and after competition, that disabled children and young people were actually missing out quite a lot on these opportunities. So these lead inclusion schools were kind of tasked to create more opportunities and ensure the competitive element within schools was inclusive for all to access. So some of you might have heard of the school games, and within the school games there is the inclusive element that's available for disabled children and young people to access. Again, you can Google school games and get some more information on that, and also kind of within your localities as well. We, through Activity Alliance, also have the inclusive health check, which is part of the school games aspect as well, and have some resources around that. So again, through our resources at Activity Alliance, this can be accessed. The last area is around empowering young people, so kind of having the voice from disabled children and young people. This is around kind of Step Into Sport, which is around leadership opportunities and ensuring that they're all inclusive as well. But through this helps give children and young people kind of their voice and that they are heard as well. Each year these schools have some additional funding that they can tap into to do enhanced projects. This year some of the schools that have bidded into this enhanced money have done some additional work around engaging very profound children and young people with profound and multiple difficulties. And you'll be able to see as well, I think there's 3 schools that are actually linking with the local offer and creating more value and added value to that area as well. So there's some brilliant work happening around that. So best ways to get engaged with these schools is to look and Google through YouSpot Trust, and they have a list and a map of where all these schools are, and also the contact details to get involved with them. So good luck with that.
Thanks, Helen. Okay, we're going to move on to our last section, which is around mental health services. And we've included this because we feel it's absolutely crucial to highlight mental health services and the joined up approach we need to have to work more closely with them to promote healthier mental health and well-being for children and young people. Again, this is a service from birth to 18, but then it moves into adult mental health services beyond 18. CAMHS services can be delivered across statutory, health and voluntary sectors, so the range of services might differ depending on whether it's by geography, method of supporting an individual, or demograph, which will differ by local priorities and funding. You can see that there are other sources of support other than child and adolescent mental health services, which we shorten to CAMHS. Obviously, they're just a few. They're examples of other organisations you can link with. I particularly want to bring your interest to the one at the bottom, which is the Mind Get Set to Go programme, which is very specifically funded around physical activity and mental health improvements, run by the National Mind charity. However, they have rolled some of their funding out into local minds. So I do advise you to go to the Get Set to Go link that's on your screen there to have a look to see if there is any locality close to where you are actually linking in with this programme. And again, some of the learning that they're gaining from that programme, again, they're rolling out into other individual locality mind branches to help them with their improvements around using physical activity as a tool to improve people's mental health and well-being. We've got a lot of work, various work with different mental health services at different levels and the impact that that can have. Because again, we know through research that it's very prevalent that being outside, fresh air, being with others, being physically active has a benefit on your health and well-being. What we wanted to do is just demonstrate that to you in a lovely example that Helen's going to speak to us about from our Get Out, Get Active project.
Hi again. So like I said before, my other role at the moment with Activity Alliance is through the Get Out, Get Active project, so GOGA for short, that you might have heard. Nottingham City is one of our localities for our GOGA project, and it was identified within this locality that yoga was actually one way they wanted to engage with female patients with mental health problems. So within this, we got an instructor called Valentina. She was a GOGA deliverer, and we asked her to engage with some of these patients within one of the hospitals in Nottinghamshire, Valentina was a little bit dubious about doing this just because of her experience. So we worked with Valentina and actually worked with the services to get her to increase her confidence and actually be happy kind of delivering for some of these individuals in the hospital. So Valentina spent some time with some of the patients in the hospital, got to know them, got to know the staff, so she could kind of understand their needs as well. And so the activity was actually really engaging for them, and so they could get something out of it as well. So like I said, she spent a lot of time with these individuals kind of building relationships and gaining trust. And on the back of that, we have regular sessions happening across Nottingham City now with not only just these patients within the hospitals that we've identified, but we're also engaging with parents from primary schools and within other services as well, such as libraries and kind of community venues, to get people with mental health kind of issues involved in physical activity. And from what we've heard, and some of the quotes and some of the impact that we've had from these individuals is that actually it's really helped support them, and they've gone on to accessing yoga activities actually kind of outside the setting of where they were as well. Further with this, Valentina did some work off her own back to actually train some of the staff within these venues, so it wasn't all kind of based on her to go and deliver, so it's sustainable within the areas that she was delivering. And she also did a toolkit around yoga, so actually when people were discharged or when parents were actually at home and had some time to themselves, they could actually do some of these yoga techniques themselves. And we've seen a big increase of a lot of these females actually going to community venues and taking up yoga activities themselves. So brilliant example, and how it's helped support some of those individuals with mental health issues as well.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to cover a few other services that I think it's important for you to know about. Here's a matrix. My suggestion is that you look at that and you take your time to understand each of those services, and to go off and perhaps Google the name of the service in your locality, and do a bit of exploratory Googling, really, to understand whether they exist in your areas. I hope they do. I've tried to select ones that, as far as I'm aware, will feature in most local authorities to help you get better engagement with disabled children, young people and their families. They all differ slightly. Hopefully, I'd like to think that they all work together in some way, and they all dovetail at some point, particularly around transition points. So they all should know about each other, and that will help you on that journey to understanding and signposting from one to the other. So go ahead and have a look, because that might be able to help you further. Just some top tips I would like to give you. Ensure your activities are on those main sites whereby services have direct advertisement, really, websites, social media, magazines, direct to disabled children, young people or their families. Make sure that parent-carer engagement is essential to engaging children, as they are dependents, so therefore you cannot ignore the fact that we need to do better engagement with parent carers as well. Try and build a relationship with one or two children, young people, services or organisations, and perhaps test some of the thoughts that you're having with them and actually gain their insight and their learning, and hopefully they might be able to become your advocates. Not only will you be able to rely on them to perhaps test and pilot things in the future, but they'll also be your word of mouth as well to other organisations. And be willing to spend time around this work. Understand and talking to children, young people about their experiences, their challenges and aspirations in activity is going to be key to really understanding what's going to work for them and what's not. So go ahead and have some fun with them. Do some further exploratory work, Google, go and meet a few people, get out there and really get to understand those services and those people involved within them. Hopefully, we have covered the outcomes that we set at the beginning of the session. I just want to say thank you for joining us today. We hope it's been useful to help you with your engagement of children and young people. And please let us know if you have some real good successes or you're getting great learning from some of these different services, because we'd love to know about it. Many thanks.